Welcome back to Cards and Comics. Today I have my first comic book related video of the year. I have some really cool Golden Age pickups I want to share with you guys. I do have other, bronze, silver books I want to show off a little bit. I don't have many modern books. I bought a few recently, but I've been very selective on the modern variants as far as artist and subject matter. But with Upper Deck having EPAC having the ability to buy comics and just store them there, I buy a lot of my variants, just the regular variants that I like by artists I like, and just keep them there, so I don't have to store them here. And it works out pretty well. And if I want them, I can just send them in, and you get a chance at some higher ratio variants by doing that. So I've been doing that. So that's why you don't see a lot of the common variants on my mail days. I've just been using Upper Deck EPAC, to do that. And it's worked out pretty well. Now, this first book here is a modern book. We'll try to get the camera set up here so I can show it off here. It's a really cool cover. I mean, it's a Power Girl cover. I like a lot of DC characters. I'm a DC guy. That has earned me a little bit of derision in the comic book community a little bit. Sometimes when I talk about that, I like DC better than Marvel for the most part. But yeah, just a great, Power Girl cover. I collect Poison Ivy, as you can see by my Poison Ivy little shrine here. And Power Girl is Zatanna, Death, those kind of characters I collect a lot. So you'll see those in my mail days. Now, I am working on and trying to do something with Jennifer Zahn and some original artwork. So hopefully you can stay tuned and I can maybe produce and show off some original cover art from Jennifer Zahn, who is one of my favorite artists going today. I'm a big Shannon Mayer, Jennifer Zahn, Campbell, not as much as I used to. So there's just a few guys. I mean, Rose Besh, Momoko. Those are pretty common, I think. But there's a few other guys out there that I really like as well. So, when they all kind of match the, art, the artist matches the subject matter, and it's interesting, I'll get it, but not as much recently. And again, I don't feel like there's a lot of need to go out and just buy variants right when they come out. Wait and see, and majority of them go down in value, or they just kind of stay flat for a long period of time, so you can just pick them up whenever you want. And I picked up recently the Artgerm Wonder Woman Golden Age cover, which is amazing cover, beautiful cover. He did one for Poison Ivy, Catwoman, and I think Harley cover. Similar idea, and so I picked up the Wonder Woman, and it had basically been the same price, for years. I think it came out in 2020. So it's like, hasn't gone up, hasn't gone down. It's just been very flat. So I think that's sort of what's going on with the modern variant market. Is a lot of things went up, went down, kind of flattening out. I bid on the Deadpool Wolverine cover that came up just recently and didn't win it. So I've been trying to get some of the harder ones if I can, but it's not as big a priority as it was maybe a couple years ago. And I picked up, last year I picked up my, the big, variant I was really looking for, from Fearless Defenders. So, that book, if you go back to my mail day, that was, Danny Moonstar, Fearless Defenders 3 variant, was just, it's such a ghost, and I don't think one sold since I bought it. I think I've only seen 3 in my lifetime. So it's just like books like that are really cool to pick up. So those are the kind of books I'm more interested in getting in the modern game. Now, next up is, not modern, but it's a really cool book. And I have been using Whatnot a lot to pick up some books. And here's some books I picked up on Whatnot. First one is a first print Turtles #3. So I'll kind of give you the full photo of it here. First print, um, you know, it's a really nice copy. It's a really, really clean copy of this book. It's not a huge book in terms of value. It's not like $1,000 book. It's not even a $500 book or $300 book. But it's an early Turtles book. It has that great early design, and then later on they went to color and it changed how it looks. And I think it screams Bronze Age to me. This is like classic Bronze Age, and it's not the variant which has like this part in white where it says layered photos. Yeah, that part is if it was in white, it'd be worth quite a bit more money. There's a variant or a printing error, and that printing error is worth a lot of money. This is not that book. So, it's just fun to pick up a clean, high-grade, raw copy of this book. And, really happy to have it. I used to have number 2, and I actually sold it at a Comic-Con. So, one of these days, obviously every kid who grew up in the 80s wants a Turtles 1 first print. And they have kind of gone down in value, so maybe that's not as unrealistic as it was maybe during pandemic time period. So we'll see. But again, these books come up sometimes and you're just able to snag them. And this one was a really clean and nice copy of Turtles number 3, raw. And so kind of Bronze Agey there. Next we'll go back to the kind of Silver Age. So again, I like, DC books. So here's Adam. Trying to find the number 2. So early, solo Adam book. I don't think there's anything major about these books. I just like having, these early covers are just pretty awesome. I'm really a big fan of, anything that is from this time period. So again, Adam number 2, 12 center. Next up is a Bat book. So here we go. Batman number 190. Which this is a really, really awesome Penguin cover. You don't get a lot of awesome Penguin covers, but this is a great one. Where you got him, tons of his cool, umbrella tricks. And, it's just like a really cool, Penguin book. So again, I think there's a new Penguin series out there that they're redoing Penguin again. So, like a Penguin Year Zero type thing. I think that's actually what it is. But, I haven't really read it, so don't quote me on that. But it's just, like the Penguin's a character that sometimes is played for laughs, and then sometimes he could be a cool villain. So, but this is just like a great cover. Batman 190, and it is a very nice cover. You can see it's got that there, and then it's got the little spine roll issue. But look at the color, man. The color on this book is just awesome. So, really nice mid-grade Batman number 190 there. Next up, some House of Mystery number 179. I'm always a fan of these House of Mystery books. Just these kind of like late 60s, 70s, 80s horror books are just, you can see the transition from like the Golden Age to Silver Age in these books really, really clearly. You have like ghosts and ghouls and like, this is a great cover with kind of this witch, with the lightning in the background. But, in the Golden Age, you had much gory and more crazy stuff. And I'll be showing that here in a minute. Which is a great contrast. This book, which another book I'm going to show a little bit later on, which is a Golden Age book, just to give you an idea of like how sanitized things got during the 70s. Even though this is kind of like, have a scary figure on it. In the Golden Age, this would have been a much more, probably would have been a lot different type of cover. And then here's House of Secrets, and again, just. Like, again, showing off, like, not as, gory or as brutal a cover as they had in the Golden Age, but still a cool cover. And again, I love these transition books. So some House of Mystery, House of Secrets, pretty fun. And for people who are a fan of Sandman, I like the fact that the housekeepers or the people who were in charge of the House of Secrets, were characters in Sandman. So I just liked how they used that lore in Sandman, which is really cool, by Neil Gaiman. Next up is some X-Men books. And again, this guy ran these really high grade X-Men run on Whatnot. And these books are spectacular. They are just abnormally clean books. But I missed I didn't win the two big books. And this is from the Dark Phoenix saga. So I didn't get the first appearance of Dark Phoenix, or Jean Grey's Dark Phoenix. But I got some really good covers here. And again, these aren't the big books, but you can just see how nice these books are. Color wise, just, no spine ticks, just great, great covers. And I'm really, really a big fan of the whole run here, the Dark Phoenix saga. So it was cool to pick up more than just, one book in this saga. So here's 136, here's 138. 138 is Cyclops leaving. So that's he quits the band. I think I had 137 here too. Yeah, here's 137. So, Phoenix must die. Yeah, again, there isn't anything, these are just part of the saga. Nothing major happens. Now, here's a key book here. This is the first appearance of Kitty Pryde in the X-Men. Doesn't go for a ton. It's not as big a book as you would think to see something like that. And the last book here, I think, again, so basically 136 through 140. I think this is the first appearance of Wolverine in his brown uniform. So like a new uniform for Wolverine, which usually costume changes are worth something. This book really hasn't gotten it much. So really, it's a super high grade run of X-Men books with some pretty cool run. Great cover art. And again, these probably should get graded as they are super high grade copies. And I just love that cover. So yeah, I missed out on the key, the big key, but I got some really cool books, in lieu of getting the big key. Now, next up is going to be the big, Golden Age books. All right, here we go. Well, try not to spill it all. All right, first up, I'm still recovering from getting sick. First up is Witch's Tales number 8. It's a very classic cover. I'm going to try to position it so we don't get super weird lighting. It's hard, man. Comic books are so hard to display. I might just hold it up here. Try to get it under the light so you can see it. Maybe I'll do this. Because it's got to be at a right angle or else you just get a lot of glare. Alright, so Witch's Tale number 8. Yeah, here we go. It is not normal for me because I usually, if I get big books from Gold Age, it's Schomburg or L.B. Cole. But this is, one that, it's a Lee Elias cover. But I remember I showed you that, the House of Mystery, House of Secret books, where you had a witch kind of on the cover and you had all this stuff kind of horror. This is kind of like what horror was like. And even this isn't as brutal as other horror books, but you got a witch, you got the Grim Reaper, skeletons, bound woman like being dragged kind of into the graveyard. Like, this is a lot more horror, like a lot more visceral of a book. And Witch's Tale number 8 is one of the great skeleton bondage covers that's out there, and it's a really popular book. It's a really good book. Cover wise, it's a 4.5 as far as condition. Really love this book, and yeah, it's just really tough to find this book out in the wild. Honestly, it's one of the ones I look for when I try to find, these kind of books, and and people don't want to depart with these very cheaply. So, not being a Schomburg or Cole means that it definitely doesn't have the ginormous price tag that those books carry, but it's not uber cheap. So it's a fun book, and there's the back of it. But yeah, I'm really excited to get this one because it's just a really, I think, classic Golden Age cover that a lot of folks think is one of the cooler of those kind of covers. Next up is the kind of a different spin on Golden Age. It's Weird Fantasy number 17, and again, this is a the cover is, I think, Feldstein. I think he's known for these kind of science fiction type covers. And now the thing I find it really interesting is Alex Schomburg did a lot of science fiction covers, but he always had kind of like the pinup girl in a lot of his, especially like on Wonder Comics and things he's really known for, famous for. When he quit and just did like regular art, let's say for magazines and books, it was stuff like this. It was like really just like spaceships and like I call it almost like military style art, or very, very straight art. And I just find it interesting that he never did any comic book covers like this, because people were doing books like this, and Al Feldstein was like someone who was known for it in the Weird Fantasy series, which books like this where you get planets and spaceships and space. Like this is definitely this is 1951, so this is definitely science fiction. And I just find it odd that that we don't have Schomburg covers like this, because if you look at his book art he ends up doing, a lot of it looks like this. So it just, I don't know, it's interesting that he left comic books to do that when he could have probably stayed in comic books and done that. So, but anyway, classic, weird fantasy. Like all the weird, like so many weird books back in the day. And you're going to see another one here in a minute. But this was a great one. So, getting, The Witch's Tale, which is horror. And then you got your science fiction. So you got the real ends of the spectrum for great Golden Age books, and it's a 5.5. It's a pretty good grade, pretty high grade for these two books. So I'm really excited about that. And then last but not least is the big pickup. And this book I purchased. I actually paid the guy out a little bit over time because this is a big book. This is a combination of science fiction and horror, and cover artist that's very collectible and well known. So you add all that up and the subject matter, and you get like a book that's just, to me, it's like one of the classic covers of the Golden Age. And this is 1954, so it's right around that nuclear age books. And it's Ghostly Weird, number 122. And this is a classic Death Ship nuclear cover, where you've got basically a astronaut that's melting due to a nuclear, I think or like he's exposed to radiation and is melting, and you can see other crew members floating around and the ship melting over here, and but just the colors, like first of all, it's that classic green, orange, yellow L.B. Cole covers, right? So L.B. Cole, he's known for orange, green, and yellow in his book. So that's just his color palette. It makes, for people who collect L.B. Cole, you just know you're going to expect to see those colors on a lot of his books. It's pretty gruesome. I mean, obviously, like a rotting, dead spaceman on cover with like nuclear rays all around him. It's like, it's in your face. And so this is the combination of, again, horror, science fiction, and a famous artist all in one book. And it makes this book one of the classics of the Golden Age. And it's late Golden Age, so it's 54, right? A lot of people call this the Nuclear Age books or whatever you want to call it. But to me, like, it's super classic. You'll see it in a lot of best of cover list, just because of the combination of all those genres into one just awesome cover. And it's it's got the weird in it again. And the thing is, I find it really interesting about the Golden Age was, like, the publishers were not afraid to completely change a genre of a book within a book. Like Captain America became Captain America Mysteries, and became more of like almost like a horror book. I remember like the Western books. Some of them became like horror Western books, where you had like a Ghost Rider had like real ghosts on the cover, and it was just like, because it was like, okay, well, now ghosts, like horror covers are popular, so we're going to make our book a horror book. Oh, science fiction's popular, so we're going to put spaceships and it's going to be all science fictiony. It was just they would do whatever it took to sell books back in those days. And so there wasn't that kind of like slave to the to what Captain America was supposed to be like, oh, it's we're going to change the book and the core of the book. And I think it did allow for people to do this, like, oh, we're going to combine genres and do something like this. And I think it's really awesome, because if you had a title of a book called Ghostly Weird, I could see this being weird, but ghostly. I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's dead people on the front, but it's like, it doesn't scream like a classic horror book, like you might think a Ghostly Weird book would be. So I think it's just pretty awesome. Again, it's a big book. It took me a little while to get it. The guy was really cool about it and had a lot of other good books, so I might end up getting something else from him. But it was also a weird transaction. I'll just go over it a little bit. He was on Instagram, and I'd seen him all around and had tons of threads, and and so I've seen people I respect, talk to him or respond to him. So I thought, like, and then there was a Ghostly Weird in another thread that someone was selling, and I asked the guy if he would do payments, and the guy said, no, I'm just going to sell. I'm like, that's fine. And then this guy said, hey, I got a Ghostly Weird. If you want one, I'll do payments. I'm like, okay, cool. And so we, did the whole information thing, pictures, all that. And so I did the payment thing, down payment, and then I got to my last payment, and then the guy's like, oh, my Instagram accounts got closed, and you need to email me. And then at that point, I'm like, oh no, this is going south. Like, the guy's, no longer on Instagram, and I got to email him. He wants me to call him, and all this stuff started happening. And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get scammed here. But then it ended up being, I contacted. He gave me a bunch of references, and I contacted the people, and then the deal went through, and the guy was not a scammer. He was fine. It just, like in the modern age, man, with anyone that, any of their social media accounts get shut down, or they start to kind of look like they're ghosting, you just get freaked out, right? And especially if you're on a book that's, multi-$1,000 book, you're like, oh my God, this is going to turn out, bad for me, but it did not. And so, but it does show like we're in a different era where, I remember on Net54, it's so common on Net54, sorry, not Net54, but CGC forums, to pay out books and buy books there, where you're, like, you're just basically based on the reputation of the seller and the threads. I mean, you're not even really investigating these folks. You're just assuming because they have, good feedback on that forum that you'll get your books and it won't be weird. And, and then you just assume you can do the same thing on Instagram. So, I just, I need to make sure I'm being, as cautious as I can. But again, this was not a bad transaction. It's just, when things start to get a little weird, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is going to happen. And it didn't. So, like, I'm glad it didn't. I'm glad I got this book. Because again, this is going to be probably one of my biggest book pickups of the year on LB Cole, especially for LB Cole. I've got another Schomburg book I'm looking at. I'm hoping to be able to get the one I was working on a deal with, sold. I before I could get the deal done, some guy just bought it. And I'm like, that's what happens sometimes, when you're trying to negotiate price or payment terms, all that stuff. some guy just bought it, and that's what happens. And so I lost my big Schomburg book I was working on. So, we'll see what goes from there. There's some Comic Cons coming up. Saratoga Comic Con's coming up, I think, in 2 weeks, week after next. So, or after this week. So I'll be going to it, not as a dealer, just to kind of walk around and look at books. Saratoga Comic Con is not a huge Comic Con in terms of dealers, usually. But this show, the spring show, is much better than the fall show or the winter show, because there just seems to be more dealers. And I think also there's more competition for cons in the show later in the year. So I think this will be the better of the shows in terms of comic book content. But who knows? I mean, I've been there when there was like 3 dealers. I've been there when there was like 15 dealers, right? So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't ever get overly excited about Comic Cons because, again, pricing might not be good, selection may not be good. So you just got to kind of take it for what you can get. The last time I went to Saratoga Comic Con, though, I did buy like 4 or 5 Dave Stevens books before they all went nuclear. So I'm glad I did that. Even though in fact, I overpaid on 1 or 2 of those Dave Stevens books for what they were going for on eBay. But now I'm doing much better because for some reason Dave Stevens stuff is just like gone nuclear. Some of those books, you see them all over like Comic Tom's top 10 list for a while. And I'm like, wow, that's odd. What's next? Michael Turner. You can see, all Michael Turner's books, and you're going to see, Campbell books again. It feels weird, like, to see Stevens books kind of like start hitting again. I mean, I don't not like it because I love Dave Stevens, but it just seems odd. It seems almost like manipulative that Dave Stevens books got hot all of a sudden out of the blue. But hey, I've got a bunch of them, so to me it's like fine. I'm not really missing a lot of big Dave Stevens books, so it's cool. They're worth more now. Maybe it'll stay, maybe it won't. But anyway, that's my comic book mail day. Let me know what you guys think. My comic book content usually does really poor. The comic book guys, only like Alex, the comic book hoarder. I know he looks at my channel sometimes and responds, so I appreciate him. But a lot of comic book guys won't look at channels that do both comics and cards. I mean, it's very few guys can cross over. Even Neo talks about that, like he has a hard time crossing over with comic book guys. And he's been on like Reggie's show. I mean, like, he's a lot more mainstream in that than I am. So I think it's just weird. I think it's just, dual comic and card content is tough because you really alienate both audiences to some extent. So hope you like it. I mean, this is the kind of stuff I love. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time in Cards and Comics. Bye.